I've heard stories that sometimes food pantries will have, all sorts of, I don't want to say any particular food, but, like they'll have all sorts of cans of one particular type of vegetable that not a lot of people in this part of the country might eat. So it is good to think about things that, a lot of people know how to cook and that they, are used to. And, of course, people from different countries might also be getting the food. So it is good to donate a variety of foods. But in general, things that you might eat, other people in your area might also be likely to eat.
At this time of the year, a Kansas State University food safety specialist says that food pantries, food banks, and soup kitchens really appreciate gifts of food, money, and time. But the generosity of donating food also needs to be accompanied by the gift of safety and health. On today's Sound Living, keeping safety in mind when donating food. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. Londa Nuwadake, who holds dual extension appointments with K-State and the University of Missouri, encourages people to think about those who will eventually receive the donated food items. In terms of what we maybe should be doing and not doing, one of the things I think we often think of is, I've got a few things up in my cupboard, let me just grab those and I'll take them and drop them off. We need to do a little bit more research, first of all, of what we're handing them to make sure that it is really something, first of all, that the food pantry can use and that it's currently not expired.
Yeah, I will admit sometimes I do the same thing. My kids might have a food drive at school and I kind of just dig around in the cupboards. But, when we think about people that might be using a food pantry, we need to make sure we're thinking about their nutritional needs as well and making sure that the food is available to them in a way that's, it's going to be safe, high quality, and, will be something that they can, feel happy to bring home to their families as well. And so it is important to think about making sure that the food will last as long as possible. So, looking at the date on the product. And food product dating is a little bit complicated. That's a whole other topic. But we do want to make sure that the product is not well past that date that might be on the label. And those dates can be kind of confusing, but it is important to make sure that when we're donating food, that we're not donating something that's well past that date that might be on the label, whether it's a best by date or a use by date.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the labels will have that information. So just take a quick glance and make sure that you're giving something that can be used, because I'm assuming the food pantries can't put it out if it's expired.
Well, that's a little bit complicated because the food product dates on most products, so on baby foods and infant formula, are regulated at the national level. But other food product dating is not actually regulated at the federal level. Some states have regulations, but Kansas does not. So food pantries actually can put things out after the date if they choose to. Like, it's okay from a regulatory perspective if they choose to put them out. And from a safety perspective, it depends on the product, but it probably could be okay. But we just want to make sure that we're providing the best quality food to everyone as much as possible. So if we're donating food to the food pantry, then it would be important to make sure that it's donated well before that date that might be on the label. So then the food pantry can have a little bit of time to get it through their system and to get it out, and then the consumer can get it and use it at home within the time that's going to be the safest and highest quality product.
Along those same lines, and we want to make sure that the cans, if it's canned goods, are in good condition?
Yeah, that's right. So if the can is dented or bulging, those are kind of just warning signs that there might be a problem. It doesn't always mean there is a problem, but it's just those are indicators that there's a chance that there might be some problems. So, just making sure that the can is still intact. We do have, in fact, some resources available that goes through kind of a flow chart to help you to know if that dented can is safe to use or not. But overall, it's definitely better to provide food products that are not dented or definitely not bulging. Bulging is a bad sign no matter what. Do not donate those. Or if it's rusty, that's also another bad sign. So just making sure that they're intact as much as possible is the safest option.
We're kind of into that home preservation time. Is that something that you can or cannot donate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So home preserved foods, unfortunately, the thing is we don't know if people have used safe procedures or not. And definitely a lot of people do use safe procedures when they are home canning foods, but we just don't know for sure. So it's better not to donate home canned foods to a food pantry because even though you might have done a good job and done it safely, we don't know that everybody has done a good job and done it safely. So it's definitely safest for people not to donate home canned foods to something like a food bank or food pantry. If you wanted to donate something directly yourself that you know somebody that you know that you want to donate it to, that's fine. But not to a food bank or food pantry is not the best case.
Same then for repackaged foods?
Yeah, so repackaged foods too. The problem is we just don't know what has happened in between the time when it was removed from the original packaging and put into a smaller bag or something like that. We don't know how it was handled, or we don't know if anything extra was introduced. So again, the best case is definitely just to, if you're donating food, to donate it in the original packaging. And if you're accepting those donated items as well, to accept it just if it's in the original packaging.
We're really looking for those shelf-stable, non-perishable goods.
Yeah, so those are the things that will last the longest. And those are the things that, a food bank or food pantry wouldn't need any extra equipment to be able to handle. So those are the things that are the easiest to donate. Things like produce are great, and people need to eat more fresh produce. But if you are wanting to donate fresh produce to your local food pantry or food bank, just always check with them to make sure that they can handle it, that they are willing to accept it and are willing to give it the extra care it would need to make sure that it's able to get to the final user safely and in the most nutritious way possible.
In terms of just things that we maybe should be thinking about donating, I know we want to have protein. We want to have really, I guess, kind of what we would think of as the My Plate recommendations.
Yeah, so you can think about the entire plate, like you said, when we're thinking about what to donate. So honestly, I think it's easy for us to donate a can of green beans or something, which is great. And people need to eat more vegetables, so that's really good. But, sometimes I don't always think about I could also donate a can of tuna, especially if the tuna is packed in water. So, things like that. And grains are also a great thing to donate. You can donate brown rice, or you could donate something that's, again, healthy crackers or something like that. Those are great things for people to be able to use. And that would help with, rounding out their entire diet. So also evaporated milk is another good choice. So, just thinking about fruits, vegetables, meats, or proteins, and then, dairy and grains. You're just thinking about healthy options from all those is a good thing to think about. And
the non-fat dry milk and the evaporated milk, that's got that shelf stable that we were talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you want to obviously donating a gallon of milk that needs to be kept in the refrigerator isn't always a great option. But yeah, things like non-fat dry milk, have a pretty long shelf life. Evaporated milk will have a longer shelf life. And so those would be good things to donate, because that's a great way for people to get their calcium and their protein and to get it in a form that can last longer.
Peanut butter seems to be something that normally pops up as a protein.
Yeah. So, and that actually brings up another thought that I want to make sure I mention. So peanut butter is a great thing to donate. Like you said, it is a good source of protein. Some people are allergic to peanuts. And so we also have to think about maybe donating things like sunflower butter or other types of butters that would be amenable for people that have allergies as well. So it's also good to think about, or even donating things that are gluten-free or something like that, because people have different diets and need to make sure that they're getting safe and healthy, nutritious foods as well.
You mentioned tuna, and that made me think that there's a couple of ways that you can sometimes get a can of tuna. Sometimes you can get one that pops off. Sometimes it has to be with a can opener. Does that make a difference if we can find something that's easy to open?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I talked about donating rice versus donating things like crackers too. So yeah, some people might not necessarily have a can opener available to them, or they're not able to use it because of health conditions that they might have. So as much as possible, it's great to be able to donate things that are going to be easier for people to open, and if they don't have a lot of cooking equipment, they are able to open up a box of crackers versus boiling rice on the stove or cooking in the microwave. So it is good to think about those sort of foods as much as possible as well. Again, always balancing out, trying to provide the safest things that are also nutritious and going to, have a long shelf life. So trying to balance that out is important.
I think I heard somebody say one time that when you're buying food for a food pantry, just think of it as if you're buying it for yourself, the type of things that you would like to eat, because most likely that is something they would enjoy as well. Right,
yeah. I've heard stories that sometimes food pantries will have, all sorts of cans of some, I don't want to say any particular food, but, they'll have all sorts of cans of one particular type of vegetable that not a lot of people in this part of the country might eat. So it is good to think about things that, a lot of people know how to cook and that they, are used to. And that's why it's also important, like K-State Research and Extension provides training, like nutrition classes to people of all different income levels to be able to help them to provide safe and nutritious foods, to their families. So they know what to do with that can of whatever that they get from the food pantries so they can make something nutritious and delicious out of that. So, and, of course, people from different countries might also be getting the food. So it is good to donate a variety of foods. But in general, yes, things that you might eat, other people in your area might also be likely to eat. Yeah.
Dry goods like pasta, something that kids might like?
Yeah, that's a great point, too. Yeah. So lots of kids definitely do eat things like, pastas and so on. And so those are great to donate to because they're very shelf stable. And especially if you can provide whole wheat pastas, then that'll be a great source of nutrition and have a good shelf life also.
I guess you can also get involved just from the standpoint of doing things where you are actually collecting food or donating cash.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Donating cash is often very much appreciated by food banks because they can usually buy in bulk and they can buy specifically what they need. So they kind of know, what clients are always looking for, and so they're able to buy that in bulk. And then they don't have to go through the extra time of sorting through the food that they're getting in and categorizing things. So that's a great thing to donate. And then also your time and your labor. Food banks, I know, and food pantries were hit really hard during COVID, of course, understandably. But, just donating your time and labor is great for everybody kids to help do that, too, so they can have a better understanding of the entire food system also. And food banks can really appreciate that as well.
I think during the holidays, the cash comes in real handy because they're often trying to buy turkeys and ham and other things that maybe didn't get donated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So things that are a little bit harder to donate safely are things that, if you provide extra cash, then they're able to buy those. And again, probably buy those in bulk and are able to plan for them and are able to handle it better then.
Another thing we're also seeing is kind of the drop boxes that are starting to pop up really all over town.
Yeah, and I think those drop boxes are great. I know for me, myself, it's just a convenient way to donate food because I can do it 24/7. If I happen to be nearby, I can just donate it. And people can access that food 24/7 as well. But we do have to make sure that we're thinking, even more so about safety in that regard because there isn't always really like a person checking that box to make sure the things that are in there are going to be safe and nutritious for the people that are using that box. So when you're donating to a parking lot pantry or a blessing box or whatever it might be called, it is really important to think about, again, those non-perishable foods, things that are, easy for people to open, maybe single-serving type of things as well. And then we also have to be very careful about donating things like produce to those sort of boxes because they can, they might spoil over time and get rotten, and then it causes everything else to also spoil. And then we also have to think about, again, when you're donating just to blessing boxes or parking lot pantries, you also need to think about glass jars are not a good idea because they can easily break. And if it gets too cold, they can freeze. If it gets too hot, we can also have problems. So especially during those seasons when it's really cold or really hot, we need to be more cautious about what we're donating to those blessing boxes or parking lot pantries because they're often outside.
Like you say, a good time to be thinking about ways that you can donate and help others out. And you have a publication on this, a nice fact sheet that people can use to help them get through the process.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a fact sheet specifically on donating safe and nutritious foods to food banks and food pantries. And it also covers things like soup kitchens. So sometimes we have questions like, I had this big event and I have, leftover spaghetti. Can I donate it? And the answer is we want to make sure that it's as safe as possible. And so there's more information on that in that fact sheet that you mentioned. Soon we'll have available a fact sheet also specifically on the parking lot pantry and blessing boxes, outdoor food donations as well. It's not quite ready yet, but it'll be ready soon also.
That's Kansas State University Food Safety Specialist Londa Nuwadike. She holds dual extension appointments with Kansas State and the University of Missouri. The tips on donating safe and nutritious food to food pantries and soup kitchens fact sheet is available from the KSRE bookstore at bookstore.ksre.ksu.edu. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. and this is the K-State Radio Network.